Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Door to Door. I'm Virginia Stanley, Director of Library Marketing at HarperCollins. I'm joined here by my colleagues, Chris Connolly and Lainey Mays. And we're here with three very special guests today to talk about books. We're joined by Casey Boyd, who is the Library Media Specialist at the Jefferson Academy in the District of Columbia Public School System. Casey, welcome to the show and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, and Wendy Bartlett, Collection Development and Acquisitions Manager at the Cuyahoga County Public Library. Wendy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be here, Virginia. Thank you.
And last but not least, Tracy Sherrod, Editorial Director at Amistad Books at HarperCollins. Tracy, thank you so much for being here to contribute to this conversation, which we can't wait to get into.
My pleasure.
So we have been listening and we have been watching and we have been reading lists and lists. HarperCollins has their own list, and we thought we're here in the business of library marketing. And who better to tell us what should be read than librarians? And so this is what we're doing today in these turbulent times. We are talking about books that effectively address anti-racism. And so we have been asking people all week to leave voicemail messages on this hotline that we have, our Library Love Fest podcast. And we've been asking people to write in. We're asking you to write in some comments today, some reading recommendations that you want, you just think that they mean something to you and they will resonate with others, with your colleagues, with your patrons. And so that's what this is for. And so we are going to begin with Casey Boyd. So Casey, thank you again for joining and for coming up with this really wonderful list that you prepared. And so I'm going to sit back and let you take it.
Okay. Thank you again for having me today. I think we have someone that's controlling the slide deck. If you could go to the first page. And my presentation, I'm going to try and be as detailed as possible and brief as possible because I want to talk about a lot of books, okay? On my cover page here, these are some of the books that are very hot right now that we are talking about a lot in our work that we do as librarians. But today what I wanted to do was highlight some books that are sometimes are overlooked, they're forgotten about, or maybe you're not familiar with those authors. Next slide. So I'm going to break this down by different levels. We're going to look at our adult, our young adult, middle school, elementary, and then just my personal books that I want to get into. So first, let's talk about the adult books. One of the books that has always given me a lot of foundation and grounding is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or a Community. And this book was published after he was assassinated. And the year before he was assassinated, he went down to Jamaica and he locked himself in a room and he wrote extensively. And this book really talks about his thoughts, his plans, his dreams for America's future, including the need for better jobs with higher wages and decent housing and quality education. Aren't these some of the things that we're talking about right now? They certainly are. The next book, Glenn E. Singleton's Courageous Conversations About Race. Very important book that my school currently is using, along with White Fragility. Authors Singleton and Linton challenge educators to move beyond recognizing the existence of the racial achievement gap and develop strategies to eliminate it. Because, hey, let's look at it this way. And if you're in the K-12 business, if you have certain hangups, issues, it gets directly passed down to the children. Our students do feel it, and they're very observant of our behaviors. Continuing on, this will be my undoing. Beautifully written book. It's intertwined memoir, social, historical context, but it's told from the lens of a African-American feminist, and her analysis of the experience of being Black and female in America is very, very eye-opening. It's for some, it's not an easy book to read, but it's a very informative book from a different lens. Mark Morial's The Gumbo Coalition is a book that I'm currently still trying to read, along with all the busy things that I'm trying to do. And this book is important because it really lends the reader into the importance of leadership and coalition building. How important that is, especially in these days and times that we are in right now. You might be familiar with Morial. He is the former mayor of New Orleans, and he's currently the president of the National Urban League. Hood Feminism is another good one, very similar to This Will Be My Undoing, but one of the things that she really hones in on is that the feminist view for liberation oftentimes has left out the poor people, Black people, Indigenous people, and other people of color. She really highlights that it's a different lens for Black feminists in this country. And Open Season, Ben Crump, this one got past me. I didn't know it was released back in October, but now that I see it, I'm excited because I've long been a supporter of attorney Ben Crump. You might be familiar with him because he is the lawyer that has represented the families of Trayvon Martin, Tamar Rice, Michael Brown, and the late, of course, George Floyd of recent. And this book really examines the legalized genocide of people of color in this country and how it plays out in courtrooms as well. Next slide. We're going to go on to our next group, which is late middle school. And this is late middle school, high school. And I know this is a tricky area for many because some people like to really just separate the middle schoolers all in itself. But we have middle schoolers, especially at my school, that are reading young adult books. So young adult high school books. So that's why I included that late middle school 7th and 8th graders in this round. Malcolm X, the autobiography of Malcolm X, as told to Alex Haley. This is one of the current versions of this book. Keep in mind that if you get the original copy, it has the forward, the epilogue by the late Ossie Davis. But this one, it omits 2 chapters and the epilogue. I strongly suggest reading Malcolm X, getting that original copy, because this is a groundbreaking book in the African American community. We read about this young man that transformed from Detroit Red to Malcolm X to El Haj Malik El-Shabazz, and it shows how a person can change and evolve. And he did this in the lens of religion, civil rights, and just being a Black man in this country. Though he was considered controversial, people called him that. When you read this book, you really have a deeper understanding for the late Malcolm X. Retaliation is one that I have always long kept on this list. It's more of a discussion tool, and it's a foundation of understanding, why do girls fight? Why are girls constantly fighting in middle school and high school? And when you really start unpacking it, these are social and community issues that impact the schools and the communities, and that's why the kids and the girls especially start acting out. And you start seeing this in different major cities across the country where you have similar demographics and populations. Excellent book written by Yasmin Shiraz. The book is centered in the Washington, D.C. area. Same thing with the book to the right of it called The Day Tajan Was Shot. This book was written by a group of young people, young girls. These 10 girls were the writers of Beacon House, and they worked with Shout at the Mouse Press, and they wrote this story about what happened when this young man was killed in his neighborhood. And it's told from the viewpoint of all of these young ladies and how they reacted very differently to what happened to this young boy who dealt with police brutality. This is, again, another book that's centered in the Washington, D.C. area, very popular read here. A Good Kind of Trouble was released this year. It is in my opinion, a junior version of The Hate U Give. And it's an excellent way to introduce middle school readers to the Black Lives Matter movement. And this young lady in the story, Shayla, she has a really difficult time with assimilating into her friend group, and she decides that she's going to take a stand for something for the first time in her life, and it's very scary. And in that small symbolism of wearing that Black armband on her arm really makes her, it empowers her and makes her think about how her voice can be used in the world. Dear Martin is another one of my all-time favorites by Nick Stone. And what was beautiful about this title is that the protagonist is writing letters to the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to ask him questions of, how would you have handled this problem? What would you have done in that situation? I reviewed this book for Booklist, gave it a star review. I thought it was excellent, and it's a must read, I believe, for for grades roughly 7th through 12th grade. I'm very liberal in my thinking on that, but I think you can even go even lower. I think kids will really enjoy and resonate with the story. The next book is Dark Sky Rising. It is the reconstruction of the dawn of Jim Crow. Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr. and Tanya Bolden wrote a very accurate and historical novel that's broken down for middle school and high schoolers to understand about the origins of the Emancipation Proclamation, how the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution came to pass, and also the Civil Rights Act that was written into legislation. Very impactful book. It's a great companion to any history book that is used in the curriculum. And then the last one is Punching the Air. I'm looking forward to this one. This one is written by Ibi Zaboy and Yusuf Salam. Yusuf Salam was one of the exonerated 5. You might recognize his name. And this is a simple story of how this young man is incarcerated unfairly and all the things that he's experiencing. And I think that this is a very poignant book for many in the community, and they can understand how did this young man maintain positivity and still continue to move forward. I'm looking forward to that. I think it's a September 1st release for that book as well. Next slide. And now we move on to elementary school. I'm going to go through this very quickly. 100 Penny Box. This is one of those discussion books, and it's a history lesson in itself. I love this story. The young man is about to throw away these pennies in the house, and the grandmother says, "Oh, no, you don't." And she says, and she pulls out each penny, and each year she's able to recall the things that happened during that time and how impactful it was. And the young man gets this history lesson through the eyes of grandma. And I thought it's such a precious book. It won the Newbery Honor several years ago, and it's written by Sharon Bell Mathis. Really beautiful, beautifully told book. I Love My Hair. Natasha Anastasia Tarpley wrote a beautiful one. In the Black community, hair is a big issue. And she is celebrating hair and the beauty of it through this written work that is for young girls to really, really enjoy. An ABC of Equality was published last year, 2019, and this is an introduction for the little ones, believe it or not, pre-K through 2nd grade, to get into social justice and activism. You know, so it's like it's like A is for this, B is for that. It goes on and on and on. Beautifully written book. In fact, let me reach over. I have it here next to me. Really sweet book. I love this, and it's a way to just introduce the littles to social justice and activism. Okay, I divert here. Going on, Little Leaders series by Vashti Harrison. really great picture book for young readers to have them understand the important people in African American history. Some well known, some not, which I really like about her approach with this book. I'm gonna Push Through by Jasmine Wright, a new gem of mine. It's a mantra that's read every day by the teacher who is actually the author of this book. Great story. It's just like a mantra that she started with her second grade class, and it got flipped into a book. And I love it. And it's a curriculum that's tied behind it as well. You'll love it when you read it. I thought no one could top Ode to the Fresh Cut by Derek Barnes. I think Derek Barnes has outdone himself in his own right here. This book is going to be released soon. I was able to get an advanced copy, and I love that young Black boys are celebrated in this book. The beautiful things that they do, the things that they're thinking, the things that they aspire to be, it's all brought out and listed there. Next slide. And I'm going to conclude by adding in some things that I'm personally trying to read, but it's difficult to do with all the work I got to do. Beverly Jenkins, I love her historical African-American romance novels, but she also has a contemporary fiction series. It's like, this is the 10th book in the series. This one is On the Corner of Hope and Maine. I love this book series because it's about the fictional African-American town of Henry Adams. And just a great storyteller. You'll just every time a book is released, you just dive right on in. The next one is kind of funny, which is Vegan But With Soul. This is Darius Williams. He is a chef, and he's teaching us how to cook with soul. And it's gotten me back in the kitchen in a good way to cook a little differently. So he's been an inspiration to me. Last but not least, my niece and I have been reading Cherie Miller's Princess Hair a lot because as you can see, I have dreadlocks. My niece has a different textured hair than mine. And we discuss how the beauty of how our hair is different and how it's beautiful. Okay, next slide. So I'm going to conclude by saying you can check me out, Boss Librarian, at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and also have a website, caseyboyd.com. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to pass it on to the next speaker. That was tough to get it all in.
Yes, that was amazing.
Thank you.
That, have to let my cat out. That was amazing. Oh my God. Oh my God, you're such an amazing book talker. And
Thank you.
My TBR pile just got super high. Wow. You just covered every age range. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. I want you to read that ABC book. I was like, what's the M stand for?
Exactly.
Thank you. That was so great. So perfect. Okay, so now I had mentioned earlier that we also had made a phone number available, and people have been calling in with some suggestions. So Lainey, do you want to play 2 now, and then we'll move on to Wendy?
Sure. Well, before we do that, do we want to show the Newberry?
Oh my goodness, you see,
I
forgot. I'm sorry. Thank you, Lainey. Thank you.
We're also getting a lot of love, people saying that everything you said, so great to listen to you. So great job. And here is,
You want to introduce
you want to tell them a little bit about it? Yeah.
Thank you, Lainey.
So you want me to talk a little
bit?
Okay.
Yeah.
I was on the Newberry 2020 committee. And my committee members and I, wonderful group of librarians I worked with, bomb group of people. We're sitting and we're waiting for the Newberry Award to be announced. And when they announced the Coretta Scott King Award winners and New Kid was on their list, we all started looking at each other, at the corner of our eye, like, this room is gonna go nuts when it happens. And that's exactly what happened. And ironically, I had my camera open, and so my Beatrice and Sandy were sitting right next to me, you could see us like screaming and losing our minds. So I'm not going to talk anymore. Just watch it. It's funny.
Okay.
The year's most distinguished contribution to American literature for children is New Kid.
It's like I looked at it for the first time again today. It still cracks me up every time I look at it. But that was a wonderful experience and a memorable one. And just all those books that this year that we selected, they just had such great meaning, and I'm just so proud to have served.
Jerry worked so hard and for so long, and to finally have his book published and to be a bestseller, and also to win awards is just outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he called me, you know, through this process several years ago, and he says, "What do you think I can do?" And I gave him some advice, and it obviously worked. And so I'm glad. It thrills me too to see him, Casey, and all his accomplishments.
Yes, definitely. It's just all of them. They're wonderful books. They just, and I have been recommending them like crazy, not only with my school community, but anyone that will listen. Like, look, check out the Newbery books for this year. They're great reads.
Yeah.
You know. Get your kids into them. You know, they're going to enjoy them, and they won't be able to put them down. And that's what's happened so far.
That's so wonderful. I love that reaction. I love that you got that on video. So great. Thank you.
Definitely.
And thank you for serving. Okay, so we're going to play a couple of voicemails right now, and then we'll go on to Wendy. Who do we have here, Lainey?
We played the voicemail from Michelle, but we can play that one more time here.
Michelle Martin.
Hello, this is Michelle Martin from Greenwich Library. One of the most transformative books I've ever read on racism is the autobiography of Malcolm X by Alex Haley. This book would be a good starting point for readers to understand the Black experience in the United States. Hi, this is Hello.
No.
Do one more.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Casey Davis from the Fairfield Woods Branch Library in Fairfield, Connecticut. I have a few book suggestions to read about the current affairs that we're facing with racism. The first is Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. There's also a great Amazon Prime movie. The other book is called Rising Out of Hatred by Eli Saslow. It's about a young man who actually was part of the Ku Klux Klan and was a white supremacist. And he learned to change his thoughts and ways, and now he fights for equality and justice for those people of color. And last is a YA book called Stamped: Racism, Anti-Racism, and You, by the most wonderful authors out there right now, Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, and we'll see you guys Thursday.
Oh, thank you, Casey. That was these are wonderful. It's just having these recordings and these contributions from everybody is so helpful, and just adds to the, as I say, the growing TBR pile. So Wendy, now we go to you, my friend.
Thank you, Virginia. Thank you. And thank you again for doing this. I just think that I am a door-to-door fan. As you know, I watch as often as I can. And I just think, you mentioned at the top of the show, it's a turbulent time, but I think it's also an incredibly amazing, wonderful time, a time of great change and great opportunity. And I think this is when librarians really step up and really add to that conversation. We do this kind of work every single day. So in times where the attention is where we finally want it, it's our finest hour in many ways to walk that with our customers and get these books into their hands. So I am thrilled to be here today. And I do want to give a big shout out to everyone who called in titles and who are adding titles in the comments. We really wanted this to be a conversation with lots and lots of voices, because we all know that's what we did at Cuyahoga County. I'm at Cuyahoga County Public Library, and my first question a week or so ago, a couple of weeks ago, was, you tell me, what's your absolute, I said to my collection development team, give me your one book. And we also included Jane Whitehurst at Overdrive. So give me your one book that a customer walks in and says, I want to understand. I want to understand my own white privilege. I want to understand the anti-racism. I want to understand the protests. What do you hand that person? And they came up with great, great stuff, which I will add to the comments because I don't want to take up too much time today. But I do want to talk about, I actually want to talk a little bit about the bestsellers that are happening, because I think these are the ones that people are going to have questions about. And these are kind of the ones that people will be asking about. And in case people aren't familiar, librarians aren't familiar, we'll talk a little bit about these. Thank you, Lainey. In this first slide, I am also on Twitter. I always have a little disclaimer and say I really just lurk and read everybody else's stuff. But if you want to follow me, you're more than welcome to. Every once in a blue moon, I post something. But my email is also there. So if you have follow-up questions for me, by all means, shoot me an email. Next slide, Lainey, please. So the first book that I really want to talk about is a book I have used with small groups and in other spaces other than the library and including the library since it came out. It came out a few years ago, but it has, of course, risen back to the top pretty quickly now, and that is White Fragility. And the subtitle tells everything you need to know. It says why it's so hard for white people to talk about racism. Robin DiAngelo talks about why people are defensive and how to kind of help talk people through this. This book is an incredible book discussion selection for people to talk about those kind of issues. And it's also just a great first step book for people who are reading about these issues, but really don't understand systemic racism, don't really understand their own white privilege. It's everyone I've ever recommended it to who has read it has found it really life-changing, because it really changes your perspective if you're a white person in terms of what am I seeing out there, what am I understanding out there. So it is a great first choice for customers, or for customers who are walking in and saying, you know what, I'm beginning to understand these issues, but I can't talk to my family, I can't talk to my coworker, you know, I'm running into this resistance. How do I talk my way through that? So it's just terrific. It's a book I've read more than once, and every time I read it, I get something else out of it. So anyway, my top recommend would be that one. And it's one that actually we're looking at, sorry, Lainey, in Cuyahoga County for our staff. You know, what can we recommend for our staff as well to read, to understand some of these issues? And so that's a great choice. All right, Lainey, sorry, second one. How to Be an Anti-Racist, I believe, is the one when we flashed the New York Times bestseller list. I believe this one is one that is on #1 in nonfiction, which makes me want to just weep with joy. I might need a minute. This is just incredible to me that this book is #1. That's so amazing that that's where this country is, and that's where people are so hungry to have this conversation. I think it's astounding. I would actually recommend this one as a second choice. People need to kind of figure out their own white privilege before they kind of get to this book. This book is really great in that it's basically carries the message of, it's one thing to say I'm not a racist, it's quite another thing to say I'm anti-racist. So what it teaches is when your local council folks pass something, or a decision is made on policy in your church or your workplace, do you run it through a lens of, is this a good policy for everybody? Does this adversely affect people of color? You read this book and you walk away with a whole different set of lenses that you look at things that happen, and it makes you, instead of just saying, oh yeah, I've kind of dealt with my own issues. Okay, how do you swing that outward now and start to look at things in terms of what is fair for people, what may adversely affect people? You know, if you think, oh, I think that's perfectly fine. Well, it's not all about you. Like, it should be the subtitle of this book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. It's not all about you. it's not all about you and the people that look like you. There's a whole lot of other folks that these things affect, and it's brilliant. It's really, really well written. I did not know he had a children's book until Miss Casey told us about that. That's really cool that he co-authored the children's book. I love that. So anyway, a strong second place recommendation for this one. Next slide, please. Hello, Lainey. What's our next one? I might have to cheat and look and start talking. Hang on a second. I got them here somewhere. Oh, the next one is Between the World and Me, the Ta-Nehisi Coates book. And I want to talk about, I actually have a slide after that also that we'll take a look at too. But Between the World and Me, I think is a really, really, really important read. If people want to understand on a personal level what it was like for Ta-Nehisi Coates to grow up Black in the United States. He does an astounding job of telling that story and telling the story of how his father is written as a letter, much like I'm trying to think of the book that he based this on, but it's the same sort of structure that he uses where it's a father and son letter that he's using. So he talks a lot about his father, he talks a lot about his son, and talks about what it's like for him to have that experience, and it's just phenomenal and really gripping. And I think I read it in one sitting. I mean, I couldn't put this book down, and I think it's really amazing. So there again, if people are looking for something really personal yet universal, that's a great choice.
So let me just interrupt you because I'm not even going to ask Chris and Lainey what's happening. They'll figure it out. But just say the title again, Wendy, please.
The title again?
Yes, please.
Is Between the World and Me, and it's Ta-Nehisi Coates' book.
Okay, and what we're going to do is we'll make a list at the, here we go.
There we go.
Okay, and we'll make a list at the end of everybody's, and we'll have it on Facebook tomorrow or something.
That'll be great.
There it is. There you go. Okay.
So it's tremendous. This is a book that I really believed in when it came out. I just fell in love with it and pushed it really, really, really hard at Cuyahoga. And I was really pleased to see when I looked at our holds, and actually one of our librarians who's watching, because I saw her sign on, Kate Merlin, hi Kate, emailed me and said, Wendy, we need to do something about the holds on the anti-racism titles because they're huge and we want to make sure we get these books in folks' hands. And I looked and I was like, oh my God, White Fragility was the highest, followed by How to Be an Anti-Racist. And then this book, which I was really pleased about because we pushed and pushed and pushed it when it first came out and created some good buzz around it. So I was glad to see it claiming third place there. Next slide, please, Miss Laney. I wanted to mention this. This is not a book, obviously, but Ta-Nehisi Coates used to write for the, at least we have a staff at the Atlantic, and he wrote an incredible piece that came into the June 2014 issue of the Atlantic called The Case for Reparations. And he talks about redlining and he talks about a whole lot of other things. This article changed my life. There's no other way to say it. Instead of understanding my white privilege intellectually, I finally got it when I sat down and read this article and just thought it was absolutely amazing. It's really long, but it's also a really, really great piece. If you are doing some kind of book discussion stuff with folks, I would highly recommend that you sit down and read this before you walk into your book discussion, because it's an excellent, excellent overview, and it'll really inform what you're saying and what you're talking and what you're doing. So I just could not resist putting this article up because it's incredible. And then I just have some quick hints and tips, and we're going to run through these real quick. Things to remember when you and your customers start reading books, your white customers start reading books like White Fragility and the Anti-Racism one by Kendi. Sometimes, and when I have worked with groups of white folks who are upper middle class, they're used to seeing a problem, fixing a problem. They're like, okay, so how do we fix it? Well, here's the bad news. You can't fix racism. It's been here a long time. It's going to be here for a long time. So we have to look at this in a whole different way that maybe folks are not used to looking and doing. But here's the good news. You can change your attitude, you can change your actions, and you can think about your own sphere of influence. Forget about quote unquote fixing racism. What can you do at your job? What can you do at your church? What can you do at your Thanksgiving table? That's the kind of questions you can be asking yourself. Learning about anti-racism is a lifelong commitment. As you don't read the book, you don't read 3 books and go, okay, I worked my way through Casey's list, I'm good. No, it doesn't work that way. And I would also just encourage the white librarians who are watching and say, don't be upset if you make a mistake. This is not easy. The worst mistake you can make is to do nothing. So if you do something and somebody is kind enough and cares enough about you to correct that mistake and tell you about it, learn from that mistake and just try and do better the next time. Next slide. The other thing to say is, and I think of this a lot at Cuyahoga County, make sure you're not imposing on the librarians of color around you. It is not the librarians of color's job to fix you, fix the customers, fix your system. They're, this is your problem and your customer's problem. So encourage people to educate themselves, and don't make this somebody's problem that it isn't. Another thing we did right away at Cuyahoga, and I would strongly recommend to the librarians out there, poll your librarians. What do they say? What's their, you can give them one. Say, give me your number one choice. Put your own list together. It's wonderful that Harper has it. It's wonderful that Neil Wyatt did such a good job with Book Pulse. It's wonderful what's on the New York Times list. And this conversation is different in Nashville and different in Cleveland and different in DC and different in New York City. So it's really, really important. This is the collection manager talking now. It's really, really important that you get that local perspective. One of my collection management team members mentioned a local history book that was about the Huff riots in Cleveland. I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant, because things were so different in 1968, but a lot of our customers remember that. And so it's a great conversation starter and a great bridge and a great history lesson. So make sure you're capturing stuff. If you are leading book discussions on these books or these topics, just be really careful, just be really sensitive. Think about reaching out to someone at a church group or a community center who has had anti-racism training. If you feel really unsure, talk to your supervisors about maybe having someone come in to give you a hand. That said, don't be afraid. Trust yourself, trust your customers. You don't have to do this perfectly, you just have to do it. Last but not least, fill those holds, fill those holds. This is not the time to say, oh, we go 4-1. By golly, we're not filling all these holds on how to be an anti-racist. This is the time to dive deep into those collection development budgets and throw money at these anti-racism titles. We have one chance in history in 2020 to get these books in the hands of our readers. Please do not say, oh, I can't afford to do this. We'll figure out the fall when it gets here. Take that money, put it towards these titles, and make sure you're getting these titles in your customers' hands just as fast as you can. All right, cool? I think that's it, Virginia.
Oh, Wendy Bartlett, thank you so much. Another round of applause. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Such wonderful advice and such great lists. And that was just terrific. Okay, we are moving right along. Lainey, do we have 2 more callers that we want to play?
Yes, we do. Let's play them now. Okay, so next we have.
Hi, I'm Maxine Bleiweiss. I'm a librarian and library consultant living in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I used to think that I didn't have a racist bone in my body until I read Waking Up White by Debbie Irving. I highly recommend it as a first introduction to this very complex topic. Thanks for doing this, HarperCollins. Bye-bye. Hello, this is Janet Lockhart, librarian lately retired from Wake County Public Library. I want to recommend Citizen, an American Lyric by Claudia Rankin. This book gave me much-needed insight into how racism affects the everyday lives of Black Americans.
Maxine Bleiweiss, Janet Lockhart, thank you both so much for calling in. Again, we will have a final list of all of these books that everyone is recommending, and we will put this up on Facebook tomorrow. Okay, it's now time to speak with Tracy Sherrod, Editorial Director at Amistad Books. Tracy, thank you so much, and take it away.
Thank you, Virginia, and thank you, Casey and Wendy, for such wonderful recommendations. I think they are fabulous. I'm going to start with my recommendations with my Vanishing Country. I have 3 that I'm going to share with you. And the reason why I picked these 3 is because they're very special to me. But they're special to me because of the stories behind them and the stories behind getting published. And so my Vanishing Country by Bakari Sellers is on the bestseller list right now at number 10. And this is a book that was, circulated by his agent, and no one wanted it. And he and I met, and we had long conversations over quite a period of time, and we were finally able to come to a deal. And this book is just really important to me for that reason, and also because of its message, because it is speaking for the working poor, which many of us are in this country, unfortunately. And it speaks to the troubles and the concerns that we have in regards to medical care, in regards to living in areas where environmental issues are at bay. We're confronted with. And so this book is very special to me because it speaks to a lot of people. And Bakari has a big heart and has been a fighter and a struggle and a freedom fighter for his entire life. Started even in while he was being born, because his father was a part of the Charlottesville massacre and was put in jail. And Bakari was born while he was in there. And so this is just an extraordinary book.
Great.
And then the next book I want to talk about is Open Season by Ben Crump. This book was also one that couldn't find a publisher. And Ben is, as you can see on TV every day, is one amazing man. What this book does is it actually identifies particular laws that are racist. And so it's going to help us in our fight here in dismantling racism within the entire society. And so Ben makes the case that there are actually laws in place, and he identifies what they are and what we need to do to get them taken down, and how we need to treat each other. And he believes that America can be a great country, and it will only be that way when everyone experiences the same level of freedom and equality and justice in the country. So Ben's message is just like Ben, very powerful, very direct, easy to read, but painful as you get to. There are so many cases like George Floyd and others. So it's a riveting book. He deserves all the fight that he gives. He deserves to be out there. He deserves to be on the bestseller list. And this is a book I hope that you guys will all fight for. And then the last book on my list is Think Black by Clyde Ford. And I want everybody to understand what we're fighting for. And this book is the story of one of the first Black hirees at a corporation. What he endured, how it impacted him professionally, personally, how it impacted his entire family, what he endured every day at work. So this gives you a real insight that, of the kind of things that we need to do in society and the ways that we can treat each other better. And when we're in environments where someone is the only one person of color, that you extend yourself and be kind, because those are simple things we can do to combat racism, immediate things that we can do. This book is gorgeously written. Everyone who has read it has told me that it was so much richer than they ever imagined it could be. And they said they learned so much. It's really a powerful book. It has it's a finalist for 3 awards. and it won one of them. This is an important book, one that should not be overlooked. You know, Clyde Ford's father was hired, you know, during a period such as this, in the 1950s when they were going to make some changes. And he went to work at IBM, and it was just a very powerful experience. And it also shows his contributions to technology and the man's brilliance at the same time, and the family structure, a struggle. And it's just really a beautiful, powerful story. I don't know what I can do, but I want to encourage people to read this one. This book is life-changing. And particularly because it relates to technology. And so you can see, you know, the rapid pace of technology and the slowness of race relations in the narrative. And then you can see more of what kind of work we need to do to make this the beloved society that Dr. Martin Luther King wanted.
Oh, thank you, Tracy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Clyde Ford was a speaker at the ALA conference, and what a brilliant man, and what a powerful speaker, and just so lovely. I mean, he couldn't have. We just really enjoyed meeting him and listening to him and learning from him. That is a very powerful book. So thank you for that.
And also, Tracy, you interviewed him for our podcast, so listen. So that was a great interview.
So how can they hear that, Lainey?
Well, you can go to
Funny, you should ask.
anywhere you get your podcasts, but SoundCloud, if you don't have like an app on your phone, just go to soundcloud.com and Library Love Fest comes up.
There you go. Yeah, very cool.
Not Clyde Ford's book either. So Amistad is the kind of press where we want to support people. So I want to let that message come across as well.
You have a fabulous list. You really do.
Thank you.
And we'll touch on a couple of other books coming out from HarperCollins, but I would like to get to we have 2 more voicemails. Is that correct, Lainey? Let's play those, and then we'll go and see. We'll look into the chat room.
So the first one, we have Nora Balancing.
Virginia, Chris, and Lainey, hats off to you for organizing this session of Door to Door. This is Nora Balancing, founder of earlyword.com, where we maintain a list of upcoming diversity titles for Library Reads consideration. 2 recent Washington Post opinion pieces underscore the importance of what we're talking about. One by filmmaker Cassie Lemons is titled, "White Americans, Your Lack of Imagination is Killing Us." White Americans, she says, show lack of interest in learning about others. Quote, "If you don't have much interest in how we live and love, you'll never understand what we're fighting to preserve. If you ignore the cost of our survival and achievements, you'll never understand the true measure of what we've accomplished." End of quote. The power of storytelling in books, films, and poetry expands our imaginations and understanding. The other Washington Post essay says it all right in the title. The best white statement to make right now may be to shut up and listen. And I'm going to do just that. Virginia, Chris.
She's just so wonderful. That was Nora Rawlinson, founder of Early Word, among other things. And now Susan McGuire from Booklist.
Hi, I'm Susan McGuire from Booklist. I want to suggest When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole, which comes out in September, as a book to get readers and ourselves thinking about anti-racism. It's thrilling. It's a terrifying suspense story that takes place in a gentrifying Brooklyn neighborhood. And when I read it, it really brought home the violence at everything from microaggressions to large-scale economic oppression, the violence that inflicts on the thriving community, and that it kind of made me reflect on what I see in real life also. Plus there's some smooching, which I enjoyed. So it's satisfying, it's illuminating, it's thrilling, and it really illustrates anti-racism themes beautifully. Okay, thanks, bye.
Susan McGuire and Nora Rawlinson, thank you both so much, everybody, for calling in. And we had several people who wrote in. So I think Chris and Lainey, you each have very briefly, you want to read just a quick excerpt from your emails?
Sure, I'm happy to. Let's see, I'm pulling up mine. All right, so this is from our friend Kelly Moore, and two books that she would recommend. One is Heads of the Colored People by Nafisa Thompson Spires, and she says the title comes from something written long ago. She realizes the term is not used anymore, but the author chose it for her short story collection for a reason. And then the second book, one of her favorites, is Sulwe by Lupita Nyong'o. So, she's from Black Panther fame. I watched some interviews. She's amazing, just multi-talented. So yeah, those are the two books from our friend Kelly Moore that she would recommend.
Yeah, and our friend Jennifer Wenberry wrote in, and she has these to recommend. So one of her favorite all-time books is one of the first books that Library Love Fest ever sent her, so that's exciting. This Child Will Be Great, a memoir by Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and the first woman to become president of the African nation Liberia, and one of the 3 2011 Nobel Peace Prize winners. Her story continues to inspire on so many levels, continuously fighting for what's right on both her public and private lives. And then also she recommends Africaville by Jeffrey Colvin, which we also have featured on the podcast. And we hope you go check that one out. It was a library reads pick. It's a multi-generational saga set in Nova Scotia. It's so rich and multi-layered, focusing on a town in Canada based on an actual town in a geographic area that is often left out of the Black history narrative, tracing the history of 2 families of freed slaves from Jamaica to the Deep South to Canada. So, and she just had so many great things to say about both of those books. So thank you, Jennifer.
Yes, and we had Jeffrey here at the here at the HarperCollins office when we had a librarian lunch, and he was the speaker and did a PowerPoint presentation, and it was amazing. We have it videotaped. Okay, quickly, and then we're going to get to some write-ins. Katie Stover from Kansas Public Library, KC Library. She says, A Black Women's History of the United States by Dana Ramey Berry and Colleen Nicole Gross should find a way into every junior high school U.S. history class. Rich, accessible, compelling history celebrating voices of resilience, heartbreak, rage, and joy. S.A. Crosby's Blacktop Wasteland is a crime thriller in the vein of all your favorite crime novelists, Dennis Lehane, Karen Slaughter, Wiley Cash. It opens with an altercation between Black men and white police that lets the reader see how easily such a situation could escalate into one of tragic proportions. And then she says, after reading Imani All Mine by Connie Porter 20 years ago, I felt a surge in empathy for teen mothers raising babies while attending high school and living in harsh inner city conditions. The short novel is lyrical and packs an emotional punch. So thank you for those, Katie. And again, we will put all of these up on Facebook later today so that they'll be here for everyone to read. The growing TBR list. And why don't we take a look quickly? I can't believe how this hour has flown. This has been so amazing. But let's take a look at such anybody can jump in. Chris Laney, if you have people who are writing in, let's know. J.D. Cargan, I really like Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. We have that. Chris Laney?
Yeah, so I saw that our friend Janie Herman with the Princeton Public Library had some great suggestions. One is Tell Me Who You Are. Pulling up the details on this book. Let's see, some others that she recommended. Race After Technology by Ruha Benjamin, who's a professor at Princeton University. And that's a really interesting subject matter. It's abolitionist tools for the new Jim Code. So very interesting. Let's see.
Yeah, a lot of stuff for Jerry, for New Kid and Ta-Nehisi Coates, all of his stuff.
And Casey, I just want to echo Morgan Jerkins because I think she's amazing and so young and brilliant. And so one book that I've been loving from her is her follow-up Wandering in Strange Lands, which is coming in August, and it's about the Great Migration and kind of the exodus of Blacks from rural South United States into other parts of the country and how it affected kind of oral tradition, storytelling, and culture. She's just so brilliant and amazing. So I've been talking about that book for a while, but I just want to stress again how good it was.
I'll go Maxine Bleiweiss. She says, for background, I recommend Complicity, How the North Promoted, Prolonged, and Profited from Slavery by Farrell, Lang, and Frank.
Okay. Janine Robinson, planning to read and listen to Lakewood, she was also on Door to Door, so you can go watch more about that book.
So good.
Megan Giddings, that's the author. Color of Law by Richard Rothstein, Sherry Suarez. Another When No One Is Watching, yes, a fan of Alyssa Cole. Yeah, lots of great ones. And if you need, even more lists, do we want to show them the HarperCollins page?
We do. I just want to read one more. I don't think you all read it. Becca Worthington's. Did you guys read that?
Mm-mm.
Okay, you didn't?
No.
Okay, it's Becca Worthington from Charlotte Mecklenburg, former AAP person and all around wonderful person, human being. Love seeing all these recommendations. Since I'm a children's librarian, I'm going to put in a plug for Beautiful Moon, A Child's Prayer by Tanya Bolden, The Colors of Us by Karen Katz, Welcome Precious by Nikki Grimes, and Happy in Our Skin by Fran Manushkin. And she also created a book list for the Charlotte community here with other recommendations. So if you go into the comments, Becca Worthington has created a book list. So just click on that because you can all access that. Okay, and people are saying such wonderful things. Janet Lockhart, I'm leaving here today refreshed and inspired. Thanks to all the panelists and to Library Love Fest. People are just thanking us, you, our lovely, wonderful panelists, brilliant and dedicated and generous.
And Virginia, can I say something really quick? And Kristen just put it in the comments. But I can't believe I forgot to say this.
Go ahead.
The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson, which was the tremendous book that came out a few years ago. Isabel Wilkerson has a new one coming out in August called Cast. And I got the ARC and it's astounding. So put it on the top of your TBR file, everybody. It's great.
Okay. I think we'll write back to each of you and get your lists and any add-ons and any afterthoughts, and we'll put it all together. I think I've gotten, between all of us, Chris, Laney, and I think we got everybody's comments. Well, we definitely got the title suggestions, the comments. I have to tell you, Casey, the comments about the video, oh my God, Nora Rollinson's crying. She says that's what she misses about conferences. People are saying how they love the energy that Nora says the video reminds me of great experiences at conference. Maybe that's why it makes me cry. It's wonderful to see the energy. Everybody's talking about that and all of you. And Lainey, do you want to go ahead and share the most recent Times list just to illustrate what is happening out there, thankfully? Got that combined print and E. Do you have that one, Lainey? That's pretty wild. So, there we go. This is the latest bestseller list. White Fragility right up there. As soon as I saw that, I said, Wendy, she's talking about that one. If you look at the nonfiction list, it's unbelievable and it's wonderful and very powerful and says a lot.
And also in fiction, there's The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. And then at the bottom, there's Such a Good Age.
Yep.
I want to frame this. I want to frame this list and put it on my desk. Is this amazing?
Mm-hmm.
We were here for this, guys. Remember this moment.
Yeah.
Hold this moment. This is amazing.
And last September, there were 16 on the list.
Fantastic.
So this you know, this has been bubbling for a while.
Yep.
Yeah, it's quite something. So that's, we wanted to sort of show that. And then Lainey, if you would show hc.com so we can show what people need to know. Just again, this was to mine the minds, the panelists, the people calling in, the people writing in today. Publisher agnostic, not what's on the spine, what's in between the covers. And we appreciate everything. Lainey, if you can just scroll up a little bit. So, that's just a little bit more. That's great. If you go to hc.com, we have Black Lives Matters themed books. We have just released trending and coming soon. And so you can see what our list is as well. And we thank you all so much for, and it's adult and children's fiction and nonfiction, which is what this all was today. That's great, Lainey. Thank you. People can get it. Listen, is there anything else that anyone would like to say before we log off?
I just want to say thank you, Virginia, and big thanks to Tracy and to Casey for making time to do this with us. This was amazing, and I just am so impressed but not surprised that this came out of HarperCollins. So thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
I want to remind people that the voicemail does not go away after today. So if you want to send, my dog says yes too as well. If you want to send us any audios or just tell us what you're reading or what you're recommending, we would love to hear it. We've gotten a lot and we'll be sharing it on the podcast. And actually, if I can tell about Amistad's takeover next week, that one so Amistad, we have an amazing Instagram page and they're going to take over for our Instagram takeover next week, next Wednesday. So check back to see stuff from the team and different books they're working on. We can't wait.
Checking out Tracy's desk.
That was gorgeous. That looks wonderful. That was a beautiful slide.
Pretty?
Yes.
Casey, again, thank you so much. You kicked this off and got us going with that wonderful list, and we can't thank you enough.
Sure thing. I enjoyed myself today. Thank you for inviting me.
The pleasure was ours. And Tracy, thank you so much for the wonderful list of books. Congratulations too.
Thank you. Thank you, Virginia.
Yeah, it's a powerful list, and we love working with you. So thank you. And Wendy, thank you one more time for all of your help with this. And of course, Chris and Lainey, best team ever. You guys are amazing. So we'll keep the conversation going. As Lainey said, that phone number is always we're waiting to pick it up. We're waiting to answer. So if you have other thoughts on this and other titles, please share them with us and we'll share them with all of you. So again, thanks for this hour and for listening in. And we will see you next time. Take good care, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.